Y11 Audio. I'm Alex Alvarado. Thank you for listening. First time in a long time. I have a conversation with Justin Coffin later on. But first, let's just get right into a little bit of some news that's happened this week. There's a lot to go over with the roster, with transfer portal and some late ads, and some late subtractions as well. But let's focus on one guy who stuck around in the most important position on the field at quarterback. Jeremiah Salem, he's on scholarship. I'm just going to play the clip from Eastern's video that they put out to celebrate.
Hey, if you're on the scout team, you know what I mean, man? You want to travel, if you're traveling. You want to play, you're playing, you want to start, right? Some of you guys were walk-ons, like Jeremiah Salem, who's now on scholarship. I want to make sure that everybody in here understands how he has earned this scholarship. First of all, he has been our scout team quarterback for the last 2 years. And Coach Nino, where are you? How often have you said, I'm telling you, Jeremiah Salem?
Every week.
For 2 years, man. And then, obviously, this winter and spring, he had opportunity. And he sure as heck took advantage of it. Man, when a guy works and serves the team, is a great teammate, has ability and sticks with it, and just keeps getting better and better and better, man, you earn a full ride scholarship here at Eastern Michigan.
I appreciate y'all. This is only going to make me work harder.
Think about the quarterback room really quickly. Cole Snyder has come in. No, we're not even going to talk about the additions. Let's talk about the subtractions. Austin Smith's out. Ike Udengu's out. Cam McCoy, he's out. All three quarterbacks that we saw last year are gone. Jeremiah Salem's the only one who stuck around. He's been on scholarship, been a walk-on ever since. If you look just really quickly at where he's from, says his hometown is Germantown, Tennessee. Went to Houston High School down there. Nice. Okay, cool. But actually, he's from Michigan. He actually started out playing at Okemos. Went down to Tennessee after his dad, Brad Salem, who was a longtime Michigan State coach, D'Antonio guy, really. After he was not retained by Mel Tucker when he came in from Colorado, Salem went down to Memphis, where he's still at, and he took a job down there. And with that, he took his son, and Jeremiah started playing 6A football in Tennessee. Didn't get any looks, didn't get any scholarships, so then he ended up walking on with the class of 2022. Been with the team ever since. Didn't leave. Had the opportunity to, really practice with the first stringers once things started moving around a little bit. I know it was kind of a weird part in the calendar, so it's not like they were having full practices and all that stuff, but you start looking around as seats start shuffling. Austin Smith's gone, Cam McCoy's out, it's just Ike's left, Jeremiah Salem. Jeremiah's the only one on the team, even through the spring, who had the most experience just, by proxy of being around the guys, right? Least amount of playing experience. Obviously, Cole Snyder's had way more MAC starting experience. He's the most experienced MAC quarterback in the league, returning right now. But on his own team, Snyder's the new guy. Salem's the guy that knows a little bit more about the playbook right now. Maybe. I'm just saying that just because he's been around a little bit longer. But Salem, I only saw him, the one time in the spring game, so I'm not going to absolutely overdo it, but I was pretty impressed with the way that just a couple year walk-on quarterback was doing. But his dad's also a quarterback guy. He's longtime quarterback coach, former head coach at the D2 level. Coached Connor Cook, right, at Michigan State. So Salem's not an idiot by any stretch of the imagination. Like he's really, really smart. We just haven't seen it on the field. But a couple years of production, behind closed doors, maybe he's a lot better than we thought that he could have been. Looking at the whole quarterback room, you have Cole Snyder, who comes in as a grad transfer. He's going to be graduating right away. In the long, distant future, we have both, Drew Viato and Jay Stuckey. Which one of them's going to end up seeing the field first, longer, in this race? Who knows? We can only truly imagine at this point, with the thinking that Salem was like a walk-on still, right? Maybe, he's not in consideration to be the immediate number 2 quarterback, right? Maybe he's not actually pushing Cole Snyder, but maybe he is. Maybe he is after this scholarship. Who knows? But when he was just a walk-on status, you're not really thinking in those terms, right? You're thinking of, okay, maybe Jay Stuckey's actually the number 2. Maybe that, they're asking a lot out of him right away. Maybe he's really proven. Maybe Drew Viato. Maybe we're just really, really, not just as a fan base, but as a coaching staff, maybe they're really, really pushing for him to have some immediate production as a number 2, right? Assuming that Snyder's a 1. And then Salem's just, convenient, break glass in case of emergency. Now with the scholarship in hand, the mindset kind of changes, right? How firmly of a number 2 is Salem? How firmly of a number 1 is Snyder at this point? Salem looked good in that spring game. Like I said, we don't want to take too much away. It was not even like a full scrimmage, but still threw some decent passes. Creighton said afterwards that wasn't even his favorite performance of him during the spring, but overall, during the spring, mostly behind closed doors, the team's been behind Salem and has liked the trajectory of, his play. So good on him. Good on him. Obviously, that's going to bode well for, the team. There's no, considering, even without Salem, right? But even with Salem, like, definitely not. There's no push to go after a quarterback this recruiting cycle at the high school ranks. Unless there's, like, one that you really, really love and, like, really, really, like, could use somebody who probably, like, on the later end of the cycle kind of addition, right, who's more of a projected body, not more of, like, a sure thing, somebody who might see their peak at the age of 19 or 20, because you don't really want to, have a 3-way fight with Jace, Drew, and, I don't know, class of 2025 guy. There's really no need for that. But with Salem, that affords you an answer immediately after Snyder graduates, whether or not Snyder, is the quarterback 1 for all 12 weeks of the season plus a bowl game, should Eastern make it. So hats off to Jeremiah Salem, just in this kind of period where, like, transferring is definitely, like, an option for him, and with his knowledge, with his dad's background, right, I would have to assume that there are options out there. There's competitions that Salem could have transferred himself into, right? Doesn't have to just be at Eastern, but he wanted to stick it out, right? So good on him. We're just going to cut right to mine and Justin's conversation from the other day. We recorded that, I think it was Wednesday night we did that. I can't remember right now. Oh, and a quick little, I forgot. Brett Gabbert's still in the league, so Cole Snyder's not. He doesn't have the most MAC experience. I totally forgot Brett Gabbert, even with all of his injuries. My bad. Justin Coffin, first time in a long time. How have you been?
Oh, I'm much better now that we get to talk some MAC football.
That's good. I need to start with, like, a little bit of a personal note. Just an update. Just, I haven't recorded in a while. I bet, people are wondering, like, hey, Alex, why haven't we heard your voice in a minute? Why haven't we seen your writing in a little bit? You actually have heard my writing recently, but I got fired from my job. I'm just going to break my NDA right now. I was one of Drake's ghostwriters pretty recently. Hey, man, I wrote some memorable shit. Not going to tell you which lines were mine, but I will tell you I'm back here podcasting, and I'm excited to do that because, boy, oh boy, I did not enjoy my time with the OVO crew.
Being a fall guy pays well, though.
You said a fall guy. It does, man. While we were gone, we wanted to do this earlier, and then last week, just schedules didn't add up right, and then we were like, I don't know, man, we just need a little bit more heat. And then by the end of the week, we got some because Missouri State, a program that we've talked about a little bit behind the scenes, mostly about like, hey, if the MAC's going to expand, what are some teams that are on the list that we would consider? Western Kentucky is one that we've talked about a lot. Missouri State is one that we've talked about very, very little and mostly in private. That's one of those teams that I actually had on my like kind of short list of schools that the MAC should consider. But now they're breaking out of the FCS. They're one of 3 teams, I think, going from the FCS to CUSA, right? With Delaware State and Kennesaw State also coming to the fold over these next couple of years. Justin, just wanted to get your thoughts on seeing Missouri State going to CUSA and how that, I don't know, man, do you care? Do you care?
Yeah, I care because if they were on the market, I mean, the MAC needs another team, or in theory should want one. So I guess I don't know if that's a situation where like, did they get outbid or anything like that? Feels like the MAC would have been a better home for them. So I guess I'm just curious to learn, like, was the MAC not interested? I don't see why they wouldn't be. But a little bummed that if they were expected to make a move, that it wasn't to Mid-America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not squarely in Ohio, right? And like when you look at the map of the MAC, it's just like any degree outside of Ohio. It's just like, I don't know, man, you're going a little far. Missouri State, it's one of those schools that I considered because it has the size, it has good enough football, right, for it to matter and like for me to like it. Good enough other sports. You want to talk about, UMass being a team that like took a step down in terms of like pedigree for basketball to go from the A10 to the MAC. Missouri State's got some history, man. That is a team that, hey, if we can get UMass in here, Missouri State, let's talk about like a rebrand, like a revamped basketball conference, something that needs new old life or new, just like something more juice. Missouri State's one of those programs that like really, really could have done that. Not just on the football front, in other sports, including basketball, important stuff.
Soccer too. Could have tried to revive the MAC for soccer again.
I'm not a big soccer guy. I went to Eastern. Not a great school for that. You're a Western guy. Akron, we don't have an Akron guy on here, but Akron is a school that, is the premier MAC soccer school, if any. What's like, so like, I don't know like how big of a fan you are in the soccer realm, but like, to what degree is that really important to you? Like when you think about Missouri State could have revived MAC soccer if Missouri State were in the MAC.
Yeah, they still would have been short on teams, but like for those who don't know, like MAC soccer was a thing. It's not a thing anymore. It folded. There just weren't enough teams. So like WMU, I think Bowling Green and NIU compete in the Missouri Valley Conference now, along with Missouri State. So kind of like a little budding rivalry there. Good soccer program there, and it would have been, considering like the rise of Western, you could have had a really good, if you could have kept it alive between WMU, Akron, and Missouri State, of a really formidable soccer conference. Plus, I just like when, like, I want the MAC to have like more full members across all sports, right? To like really build that cohesiveness. They don't have a ton of that beyond football and basketball. There's a lot of like It's a lot of weird schools. If you're like, I wonder where this school wrestles in. Well, probably the MAC. um, it's a the MAC is a very strange conference once you get outside of the big sports.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Missouri
Missouri State have a good baseball team?
Does Missouri State have a good baseball team? I have no idea.
Let's just say they do. Why not? Why the hell not? Maybe they do.
I mean, they are closer to Kansas City than St. Louis, but yeah, they're still probably good.
I'll look it up.
Look it up, Justin. Look it up. Look it up, Justin. Look it up.
Is 120th in RPI good?
Probably not.
It's not. But that's 30 spots better than Western Michigan, who is tied for first in the MAC. So upgrade.
We keep talking about this in terms of conference expansion, and we're going to keep doing that. In the short term, Missouri State, were they ever on the table for the MAC? We don't really know. Doesn't really look like it. Again, in my view, it still looks like Western Kentucky was and should still be, the next best, candidate out there that should be coming to the MAC to help, make things a little bit better. But with this immediate news, I do wonder, as a quick opinion, I think it makes the UMass edition just a little bit less palatable, just because the Missouri State ad could have been a little bit better. And I do wonder, with other changes that the CUSA is making, I, from my chair, am not a believer in CUSA. I don't think this looks like a conference that, at what point has the CUSA looked the same over the course of 3 to 4 years? In 3 to 4 years, we're going to be talking about a totally different league. I don't know if these recent changes are making Western Kentucky change its mind and maybe actually like CUSA more than I'm giving it credit for. And maybe so much time has passed that maybe they don't need or want the MAC as much as it did. But I don't think that would totally be the case. I still think that there might be a little bit of a desire out there. I'm just hoping and thinking out there. I'm not reporting on much. But that also is to say that, hey, maybe Missouri State, sure, they're not going to be a candidate for the MAC for people that, really care about the conference expansion stuff. Sure, Missouri State might not be a candidate for the MAC in the short term, but maybe, hey, give it 10 years. Why not? We've waited long enough. There's still other changes that the MAC can have with or without Western Kentucky, with or without Missouri State too. I know that the short list of schools that, me, Alex Alvarado, would approve of to come to the MAC, it's only getting thinner from there. But I don't think that all hope is lost just because, Missouri State's going to the CUSA right now. Right now, that looks like a good tryout league. Go ahead, be the 136th FBS school. Go ahead. We're just going to keep adding, whatever teams from the FCS want to come up. That's what we're going to do as CUSA because we don't have any plan after that. So yeah, this is just a major wait and see how that goes because I'm just not a believer in that logo. I'm just not a believer in that.
I'm not either. Do you think it has more to do with geography because I think I'll think about this the other day, CUSA seems to be swooping up some pretty premier FCS programs. And I don't think the MAC necessarily thinks that's beneath them, nor should they in any way, shape, or form, right? But is it just that geographically those top FCS schools tend to be kind of more in the CUSA's, I guess the CUSA's footprint is whatever the hell it wants to be.
I mean, what footprint? We are stretching from New Mexico State and UTEP being across the street all the way to Delaware.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's
they're
just
kind of in survival mode, right?
That's two distant corners. There's also in the other far distant corner FAU and FIU. Right? Because they have FIU, Jack State, Liberty, Louisiana, or it looks like oh no, FAU is an affiliate
as well.
But still, you still have FIU in the mix. FIU, Jacksonville State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, Sam Houston, UTEP, and Western Kentucky. And that's not including Kennesaw State and Delaware, who are also coming through. So we're all over. We're all over. I get that it's a good bridge between Delaware and the New Mexico schools. It's right there in the middle. But it doesn't have like a geographical identity. Like Conference USA,
right.
Honestly, like they're the best conference at not lying about what its geographical footprint is. It's in
or
USA.
That it's just trying to survive.
It's in USA. That's it.
Pac-12 should have taken some notes and added the ACC schools instead of the other way around. See, Pac-12, you could have killed the ACC.
Should have. I'm tapping my forehead for people that can't see it. We're moving on. Non-conference scheduling earlier today being today's Wednesday. Recording this a little bit early. EMU is going to be at Michigan in 2027 and 2030 for the first time since 2011. I watched that from the stands. That sucked. Whew. Ron English years. That was actually a good Ron English year, too. Don't get many of those. 2027, that's going to be a week 3 contest. 2030, that's going to be week 1. Both are going to be at the Big House, of course. There's no way that you can get Ann Arbor people to come to Ypsilanti. No way. No way.
Michigan barely plays road games anyway. They need like Big Ten mandated road games.
Exactly. I don't want to talk about this game in terms of like, hey, what do I think the chances are of Eastern beating Michigan in those games? Because, that doesn't make any sense to prognosticate at this point. Also, not good. I'm just going to speed up to the point. Not good. I don't feel good. What I do want to say is that there's a really good play for EMU to keep Chris Creighton through 2030 with these games. Justin, I was talking to you a little bit about the show, a little bit before the show, about somebody who's not on Eastern's roster right now and could be during these 2 games. I'm going to walk you through this again. Imagine Luke Creighton, who is Chris Creighton's son, class of 2026. He's not a high-level prospect right now. He's just entering his junior season this year, coming off of an injury his sophomore year. Right? Not a high-level prospect over in Salem High School, but he is a quarterback. He is athletic. He is a coach's son. He is somebody that knows a thing or two about this sport. His whole life has been around this region of Michigan. Think about this. 2026, if he comes to Eastern Michigan, this is just a big fat if, right? But we're just going to play it out because, hey, what are the odds? What are the odds that Chris Creighton and Luke Creighton, father and son, hook up and play, coach with one another over the course of their college career? Luke could come in 2026 as a true freshman, not play, or maybe 4 games, who knows. Redshirt, 2027, redshirt freshman year. By the time week 3 comes around, yeah, try your shot at Michigan. See what happens. Play a little bit. Probably not start, but hey, get a couple reps in. Get the experience. By the time 2030 rolls around, maybe he's at the transfer portal by then, but maybe not. Maybe he and Chris Creighton really want to do this for the long haul. Maybe they really want to make some memories together. Wouldn't that be an awesome experience to go into the Big House as a redshirt senior and open the year at Michigan, leading Eastern Michigan? And who knows, by then, maybe Eastern's won a MAC championship or has at least gotten to Detroit. I don't know. But when you look for, that far down the road and know who is out there, what could keep a coach in his position for as long as possible, it's opportunities like that maybe it's not that important to them. Maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion, but it's May, and the possibility of Luke Creighton and Chris Creighton playing at Michigan in 2027 and 2030, it's on the table.
It's like the Bronny James theory for MAC quarterbacks. You want to keep LeBron or have LeBron join your team, you got to draft this kid.
Right, but also hey, if we're talking about let's say this level of college football, doesn't it really, really pay off to have a reliable quarterback that you know is going to stay around for more than 2 years? Like, that was already the case before, but for real this time.
I just like the prospect of Creighton still doing his like we have three quarterbacks and they're all gonna play, but with his own kid.
Yeah, he didn't have a good spring.
Yeah, this kid we brought in is not our finest hour. He's gonna play the first 10 snaps and then it's gonna be on a snap count.
I don't know who taught him
Big
how to
guys.
read defenses, but my goodness.
Wasn't me.
I can't think of, and there's gonna be like a prime example out there. Oh goodness. I was just making a joke. I was just making a joke and I ran into a really bad pun, Justin. Because I was just thinking, like, I can't think of an instance where a father
I
and
honestly
son.
don't think I would have. I don't think I would have caught that until I saw you put your hand on your face.
And in the MAC, we haven't seen a Deion Sanders instance where the coach is the father of the quarterback. We haven't had that. I don't think in the MAC. Like, I don't remember. Yeah, I highly doubt that's been a thing.
I think Ryan Cubitt played quarterback for WMU when Bill was there,
Mm.
and then became offensive coordinator after he graduated.
Do you think I'd have to look. Did No, Jordan Lynch did not coach his brother in college. Jordan Lynch coached his brother in high school. I'm going off memory here. And even then, that's not father and son. That's just brother.
Right. And not the head coach. Well, head coach in high school, yeah, but not. I can't think of any. Nothing else is coming to mind either.
Just to tie this up, just looking at the schedules for Eastern, 24 is obviously already filled up. 25 is filled up too. 2026, EMU has 3 games scheduled with week 4 open. 3 games are scheduled in 2027. There's at least 1 game scheduled every year through 2032. There's Big Ten opponents. We got Michigan State coming up and Michigan. Kentucky for the SEC in 2025. I'm not going to go through the whole list. We can probably just look at it on the website or whatever. But decent balance that EMU has been able to strike in its non-conference schedules. Have some hard games, but not too many. Don't be a whole Kent State about the situation. Get some FCS games, but not too many. Like 1 a year is just fine. It doesn't have to be every year. We are seeing an FCS game every year through 2026 so far. Justin, we have one more topic to get to. Keeping it in the MAC, but going national at the same time. Sean Frazier had some things to say, had some things to respond to over a tweet that was circulating and that was talking about the financial disparity between all of the big schools and, everybody that's not in the Power 5 or Power 4, we should say now. Do I want to read all of this out loud, Justin, or do I just want to just say that this is a bunch of blah, blah, blah to me? Because Sean Frazier, NIU's athletic director, is pro the group of 5 needs its own playoff. And I have always been against that.
I've not always been against it, but I am now, after giving it a lot of thought. So Sean Frazier's had this idea for a long time, right? He probably feels like now is his time to shine because he's sort of talking about it against a backdrop of there's a lot of G5 anxiety right now. I don't remember the last time the group of 5 was in the news in the off season this much for college football, non-realignment related. Maybe ever. I can't remember. They come up, the ACC is talking about group of 5 road games during their summer meetings. Sonny Dykes is bringing up about there being a split. I think the exact quote was Louisiana Tech and Bama don't play the same sport. Which, whatever. No one is saying that. That's not who we're comparing. there's not just a push, it's going to happen. There's going to be a G5 top 25 coaches poll as voted upon by all 64 group of 5 coaches. Apparently there's a sponsor. They have a sponsorship deal for it. The big idea there is like, oh, we can put the number 1 versus number 6 G5 teams, and that'll drive viewers because they'll see the number next to it and things like that. I think viewers are a little smarter than that, but yeah. And in truth, like we don't really know at what point in the season do we really have a decent idea of like who's number 1 and number 6? I guess G5 coaches would know better than anybody, but who knows? All that said, like, here's what I appreciate of Sean Frazier is he is very open about the fact that he's like, I see a problem here and I'm trying to come up with solutions. I appreciate that. We don't want to discourage problem solving in society. We want people to bring up ideas even if they're bad. I don't think it's a catastrophic idea, the G5 playoff, that is, but I don't think there's any need for it now. Where I kind of fall on it is like, if you think a group of 5 split is coming and that split is going to be forced by the Power 4, maybe just fight tooth and nail in the meantime to keep access to that very lucrative 12-team playoff, and then pick up the pieces, and then, brush off that blueprint when the time comes. I don't think there's any reason for the G5 to force a split. And that's where my thinking has changed a lot over the years. As the chip on my shoulder from being a G5 fan kind of fell off, right? And I just embraced liking my own team and don't have to explain it. As that fell away, it was kind of like, yeah, we don't have to say like, well, if they're going to screw us anyway, let's just get on with it. No, there's no reason to do that. Like, if you know the move is coming and you think you can't prevent it, fine. But like, there are other options in the meantime to make that happen that don't involve us just saying like, well, we don't want to play ball with you guys anyway. He's not the only one, by the way. Like, Jamie Chadwell is on board with a group of 5 playoff. Derek Dooley is, I think, the person who proposed this formally recently, and that's what sparked the conversation and brought Frazier back into the fold. Mike Oresco, I think, was in favor of it-ish before he left the AAC, although his take was more that there's a Power 6, right? Have a group of 4 playoff and don't involve my teams. I think the one thing a lot of these guys all have in common, Dooley, Chadwell, is that and even Sean Frazier, I love you, man, but we know you were trying to get Power 5 athletic director jobs, and that's not a bad thing, but he knows where the green grass is financially. All these guys do. Chadwell's not going to be at Liberty forever. He's going to be at a Power 5 job at some point, right? So all these guys that are saying a group of 5 playoff sounds great. Head coach at SMU, I'm blanking on his name right now, and I shouldn't be, but he's also in favor of it, which is super convenient because he now plays in a Power 5 conference in the ACC. To me, it's a lot of people who have found greener pastures are trying to advise the G5 on how it should proceed after they've already left. I would feel more confident in a G5 playoff if the people advocating for it were within and not 1 foot out the door.
Yeah, I mean, we already went through essentially a college football news cycle of Washington having, 3 athletic directors in the course of 4 months or something like that? Not even?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously,
right.
Washington, Northern Illinois, they're not playing on the same soil. It's totally different ball game. Same can be said about Alabama and Louisiana Monroe, or Louisiana Tech, I should say. But I'm just going to read Sean Frazier's tweets out loud, just for the listening audience who haven't read his incredible thread. Not that what I write is much better. There shouldn't be much of a debate. At the G5, we must create an opportunity to be financially sustainable, period, which means playing meaningful games in December. When I proposed the G5 concept back in 2016, the plan was to increase revenue, create championship experience, and maintain financial sustainability. Having a G5 NIT format that would be in addition to the college football playoff would give G5 institutions like us an opportunity to sustain our programs. So it isn't to get rid of anything. It isn't a play-in, it doesn't look like. It's just another thing over there. Kind of like bowl games. The new college landscape, transfer portal, NIL, conference realignment, NCAA house case, the NCAA transformational recommendations, just to name a few, make it critical that we as practitioners seek out all options to support our programs. Having any option to utilize the current bowl structure, support the G5 champions, and use competition time frames both in week 0 and the last week in November, an NIT G5 competition can be possible. Increasing revenue in light of all the new challenges in FBS need to be job one. Completing my 11th year as AD at NIU, and also have served as an AD at the NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3 levels, has eliminated the fact that there is no such thing as standing still. You are either moving forward or moving backwards. It is definitely time to do what is necessary and protect the programs and traditions of our G5 institutions with leadership that stands on business. Sean, great job, man. Oh, I bet NIU is just raking in the dough with your leadership. I shouldn't be talking too much shit, but man, this is like a lot. This is a lot coming from a program that is just super, super desperate. And like this, I guess like it is the super, super desperate programs that have to be like the most radical about this, or like the most, no, we want change because I don't have $5 to give you, man.
It is. Frazier comes at this from a really interesting spot to me because he oversees an athletic department headed by the football program that has won a ton of football games and won a ton of MAC championships and can't get butts in seats and doesn't make a ton of money. So I get from where he's coming from. He's like, I'm doing everything that I can do to field the best football product that I can. One of the more consistent G5 programs in a long time. And it doesn't freaking matter. So for him, it probably feels hopeless. And I get why he's thinking like, we need to carve something out here. 2016 was a hell of a year, by the way, to like start talking about a G5 playoff. That was the year Western Michigan went and played in the New Year Six. Only 3 years after that, NIU also did that. It was a weird time. It seemed to be like kind of the zenith. And so maybe you give him credit for saying like, hey, like these good times are not going to last right now. We should strike while the iron is hot. Maybe that would have been a good time to do it. I think where I butt up against this is if you go ahead in the G5, commissioners and athletic directors want to pull forward and do a G5 playoff. I think that's all the admission and cover that the Power Four, whatever you want to call it, needs.
Sure.
To say, okay, well, they admit it. They're not playing the same sport.
Oh my
because
God,
they're
you
fielding
admit
their own
it.
competition. Exactly. So they're just going to say, okay, well, now we can just get on with it. They're all taken care of. See, you guys don't have to worry about them anymore. No more belly aching about tradition and in-state things and all that stuff. Let's just move on with it. The other problem with it is it's not only the college football playoff you lose out to. There was a quote from the ACC meetings this week that kind of scared me. And it comes from old friend Dave Clausen, who said that the ACC has a perception problem, and that one of the culprits of that perception problem is they should stop playing road games against Group of Five opponents. You see ACC schools like NC State are canceling home and homes with like App State. Mac Brown said something to the effect last year that said like, we're never coming back to Boone. Someone else can come do it. NC State can do it. And then NC State said, nope, we saw what happened. You guys escaped with an inch of your life. We're not going to go do that. And so it's a situation where really good G5 programs are kind of punished for being really good G5 programs. So they don't get those games. We've talked about like Toledo doesn't play a lot of bye games. It might not be because Toledo doesn't want to. It might be because teams don't want to bring Toledo in.
Right.
Ohio State's probably comfortable doing it, but like Indiana probably isn't. Illinois got a scare last year from Toledo. Like they get, and that was a home game. Like those teams sure as hell aren't going to do a home and home at the Glass Bowl. That's not going to happen. That's why Toledo gets really, really good G5 games. He used to play BYU, had series with them and things like that. And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But if you go forward with a G5 playoff, you run the risk, I think, of getting shut out not only of the playoff, but out of the rest of the pie as well. Because if middling Power 5 teams stop playing home and homes with you, the next step is they're going to say, why do we play them at all? Talk about the conferences bloating, and like from the ACC's perspective, they're probably feeling we're going to lose two of our biggest members in Clemson and Florida State. That seems to be a done deal. It's practically a dead conference walking. They have like Stanford in it. They just don't really know what their direction is right now. We're never going to get Notre Dame. Like, they're trying to carve out their place in the world, and they feel that their perception is negatively impacted by playing these G5 games. And so I don't think we need to jump on that slippery slope with them. Like, let's just let them have their little anxiety attack about it, but fight tooth and nail to say, like, come play us. I thought, I'm blanking on his name too, Toledo's athletic director, I think, took the appropriate approach in this. Yeah. So he said something to the effect of like, look, if you gave Toledo the resources of like the average Power 5 program, I'd love to see what the football product is. Like, you see what we put out every year with the resources that we have. Imagine if we had a few extra $1,000,000. And I think that reading between the lines, his point is that the resources gathered by a lot of these middling power teams are not earned by their play on the field. They're not earned by the quality of the athletic department. They're not earned by anything other than the fact that who their academic institution was many number of years ago. And that used to matter. But we're drifting farther and farther away from this being like an athlete-centric enterprise and doing what's best for them to more of a commercial one, which, like, I don't think that spells the death of the sport. I don't think it's like bad. It's just change. It's whatever. But if we're going to do that, then there should be some merit involved in it. And I think, like, obviously Toledo's probably angling for a way out, but I think that's more of the approach the G5 should take is, hey, Sonny Dykes, we're not arguing your point that Louisiana and Tech and Bama aren't playing the same sport. I'm going to argue that Coastal Carolina is better than Vanderbilt. That's the attack line that you take, is any power breakaway that involves bringing up bottom feeders with them to just rake in millions of dollars to never win. Like, maybe they will someday, but like Purdue's not going to win a Big Ten title. And if they do it, it'll be like once in my lifetime.
I think you're stumbling on like kind of the really good point here. Where like, you know, you can look at this proposal of like, okay, if we can swap out 3 or 4 bowl games and call it the G5 playoff. We just market it somewhere differently, and that's supposed to magically gonna, I don't know, make people give a shit. It's gonna have 10,000 more viewers, 100,000 more viewers, 200,000 more viewers, 300,000 more viewers, as opposed to calling it the Fluffy Pillow Bowl. I don't really know, but truly, like, that's not going to be the case, because the casuals or the people that you're trying to win over are not going to sign up for, and I really feel bad for saying this, are not going to sign up for like the 11-1 Liberty team versus the 12-0 Boise State squad. Like, that's not what people really want to sign up for. People really do want to sign up for saying, hey, I want to see David take down Goliath. That's what people want to see. People don't want to see 2 Davids all the time. And I love Davids, but like... Yeah,
to be clear, like, neither of us are saying that people shouldn't get excited about 11-1 versus 12-0 G5 on G5. Like,
this is an EMU football podcast. People know that we like this.
I wish people would get, like, this is not a like a morality judgment. Like, we wish people would care about that, but we know that they just don't. And I think, like, back to the like Dave Clawson's comments, like, what's the solution for the ACC there? You stop playing a G5 road game.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to go play a Power 5 road game and lose, but because you lost to a power team, you're not going to take as big of a hit for it. That's kind of like the root cause of this whole problem.
Yeah, and I used to blame. They beat Georgia Tech when they shouldn't have.
Right. So, like, you have, like, they're just talking about external perception, is that people are like, well, if you know, like Boston College lost to NIU last year, but if they had lost to Indiana, it wouldn't have hurt them from a brand perspective as much. And that's really silly. Like the conclusion there should be like, wow, NIU's got a pretty good football team this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the conclusion anybody like ever reaches. Um, so I don't know. Like, I mean, if teams want to go play Virginia instead and then like beat them by a ton of points, like I don't think that's going to fix what ails the ACC, and that's why I think all of this just sits downstream from this realignment anxiety, and everybody's trying to scope out their place in the sport, and that's why the G5 has kind of been like a punching bag on this from the Power Five ranks right now, because I mean, consider Dave Clawson, right? He coaches at what is essentially a G5 program anyway, right? Like no disrespect, but like from a resources gap standpoint, school size, like all that stuff. Like really, he's just trying to say, no, 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 we do belong here. And that's what I think is going on. And I don't think the G5 should stand by and say, like, I get what Sean Frazier's saying, but what everybody's going to hear is that the G5 is saying, yes, Dave Clawson is right.
The other like point that makes me very easily against just a radical I don't even want to call it a radical shift, but just like too much work for this kind of change, and it'd be a legacy killer like if done wrong, you know what I mean, for not just like schools actually involved in this fake playoff that we're trying to make up, but like anybody that could be potentially eligible is having their legacies just damaged by it. But also, like, I don't know how to compare that to like what they're actually playing for today. But I digress. Who's gonna play in these games? I'm not saying like what schools are gonna show up. I'm saying what players and what coaches that help get these teams into these playoffs that we're trying to like fight for. Didn't they just take new jobs? Didn't they just transfer out?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're good enough to get in here, you're good enough to go elsewhere. If you're on the sidelines or if you're on the field. Like there's not, I'm not convinced that it'd be entertaining just on that level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go much further than that. I don't know why like we waited so long just for me to get to that point. Like that right there is enough reason for me to say, no, this is not what's going to fix football. We're just going to run into the same problems that's already damaging the sport. Can't we just fix these other things?
Yeah, Florida State didn't care enough to show up for the Orange Bowl. How are you going to make... I don't think you can dangle a potential spot in the college football playoff and then say, well, if you didn't make it, here's your like consolation prize, right? I mean, the only way it ends up working is if happens to be a sponsor out there who wants to pump a bunch of money into it and like have a big prize. Like, okay, winning school gets $3 million. You have to share it with the athletes somehow, right? To get them to play in the game, to your point, right? But if you solve that problem, like here's a shitload of NIL money. Like college basketball is doing some like NIL fundraiser tournament or something like that. I don't know, but like
yeah. The key words there is I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But like if you could solve that piece of it, then my ears will perk up a little bit where it'll be like, okay, then I think players will be like, hey, I'm going to the NFL, but I'm going to secure some extra money if we go win this game. Right. And you are asking those top four teams, two of them are going to play an extra game. Right. So they got to stick around longer. And I just don't see how it works. And I think ultimately, like we talked about this offline last week, right? But my big kind of guiding principle on this is I think you're chasing the wrong audience. Like if the G5 approaches this problem that they're facing and they think the solution is we need to get more national people who are unfamiliar with our programs to care about it, I think that's wrong. And to bring it back to NIU, like you should focus on getting people to care about the Ball State game.
Listen, so we're gonna end it on this, and it's gonna be one thing that we talked about a little bit last week. And it's my final point. And you want to make meaningful games. Matchups matter. Branding, honest to God, really does matter, right? Stakes truly do matter. The intensity really matters. And shit, if we're conditioned so much to it that what's important to guys like, or people like me and you, Justin, who watch this level of this sport at the MAC level and up, is that the talent needs to be evident on television. And we talk about why can't, there's the high level football that obviously packs so many stands. There's lower levels of football where they play in smaller stadiums, but to full capacity. Why can't this level, where we're at the highest division of the sport, but in the lowest chain of command of it, why is it that we're worried about, the passion? Why isn't the passion there? I thought we were paying for that.
Mm-hmm.
The lower levels are not lying to themselves. And that's something that like people need to like really think about. They're not lying to themselves. They're not worried about how many nationally televised games, like the stupidest phrase. I'm done hearing that. How many nationally televised games are on the schedule over the next few years? They're not worried about, these TV contracts, all this drama that's coming in. They're not worried about the blue chip quarterback on the other side. Well, sometimes they are. They're not worried about, the blue chip this, 3-star kid here. It's all this like material fake stuff that we're being thrown at the top level of the sport for us to care about. We have to care about all the extra stuff that's like on top of the real sport that's actually being played. At the lower levels, they're really just focused on the sport. Like it's really just the sport. And that's where like the love and the passion is. And like, it for them, it doesn't matter if, they're not going to the college football playoff because they didn't go 10-2 as an ACC team. Like that doesn't matter to them because there's just so much more opportunity for those fan bases to really experience something fun at their level. And they go, and not all of them across the board do it. Not all schools are at the lower levels are packing the houses every Saturday. A lot of these times, like those students do want to watch Ohio State, right? But the people that do turn up for those schools, especially at like the ones that we do end up seeing, on ESPNU in December sometimes, like those schools show up, man, when those football teams are rocking.
Yeah, Montana and Montana State were going to fill those stadiums even if people didn't even know they existed. And that's like to like, I guess, kind of clarify my point on like NIU and the Ball State game is like the focus of all of this is get the people closest to your program to give a shit, and then everyone else will give a shit. I think they have the equation backwards. They're trying to produce a product that everyone gives a shit about in order to get people close to them to also care. And I don't think, like to your point about a lot of the schools at the lower level not lying to themselves, they do it in the other direction and the atmospheres are better. If you could figure out how to make like EMU Ball State pack the seats and not be homecoming, and neither of the teams are like 7-0 or something like that, then you've got something.